Float fishing is one of the most enjoyable ways to catch fish. Here, Callum explains what's inside the Maver float fishing kit.
Hi guys, my name's Callum and you're joining me today at the fabulous Western Pools, where hopefully I'm going to be catching loads of fish and showing you that you don't need the most expensive gear to still have a great day and catch loads of fish. Today I'm going to be using a little bit more of a traditional method, the good old rod and line and waggler fishing. And Maver have produced a float fishing kit that basically gives you everything you need to just get you going. Before I start and hopefully catch a few fish, I'll take you through in a little bit more detail exactly what you get in the kit. Right guys, the float fishing kit in a little bit more detail. To start off with, you get a really high quality Reality 10-foot match rod two-piece. Two-piece was really easy for storage. Now this is partnered up with a Reality 3000 size reel, comes pre-loaded with 6-pound line, which is perfect for all-round waggler fishing. The end tackle you get two pre-loaded wagglers with different bristles. You get an insert and a slightly fatter bristle depending on what baits and size fish you're fishing for. You get a small pot of mixed shot, so you can actually dot your float down to exactly how you want it, depending on how easy it is to see the float. You get a plummet for finding your depth. You get a disgorger, so if you do hook a fish a little bit further down, you can get the hook out nice and safe. You get your hooks to nylon, which is a size 16 hook to 4-pound line, which is pretty perfect for all your commercial and natural fishing. You get a tackle box to keep all your bits and bobs in nice and safely, so every time you go fishing, you know you've got everything with you. All you have to do is partner this with the Reality net and handle combo, and that is everything you need to get you out on the bank catching loads of fish on a rod and line and waggler fishing. Right, so we've looked at the float fishing kit and exactly what you get. I'm just going to run you through exactly how I set it up. So first things first, you've got the 10-foot two-piece match rod. Put the two sections together, ensuring all the eyes are lined up correctly. Then thread your main line off the reel through the eyes. Slide your waggler float onto the main line and attach your hook length. Once your float is on the main line and your hook length's on, put the hook into the hook safe at the bottom of the rod. Now this will keep the line nice and tight and nice and secure when you're clipping your shot on. The float I've used the thicker top float out of the two you get in the kit. And I've chose to use the medium size shot that you get in your mix pot to clip round the float. This float will take 6 of the medium size shot around the float. Most of the weight of the shot that I'm putting on the line will go around the float. So I've put 1 above the float and 5 below. This will make the float just cast a little bit better, having slightly more weight below. But the 6-footer line between your float and your hook length, I've also put 3 shot of the smallest size shot in your mixed pot. So 6-footer line between your float and your hook length, still quite a lot of line. And when you cast it out, if you don't have those 3 smaller shot on the main line, it will take a long time to fall. So those 3 like size and 8 size shot will make that bit of line sink just a touch quicker. Still going to get some bites on the drop, but it will make sure that it does sink and doesn't get caught up in the surface tension. So the rod's put together, all the eyes are lined up correctly, your float's on the main line, you've got your shot on the main line, you've got your hook length on, and I've just shotted the float so that it sits so I can easily see it. So I've got about 1 centimetre of the float showing, which ensure you that you'll be able to tell what's a bite and what's a false bite. So that is the actual setup. When I've set it up, all nice and neat, ready to go, I'm going to choose to fish maggots today. I'm going to fire some maggots out with a catapult and see if we can catch some fish. Right, so I've talked you through exactly how to set up the float kit, putting the waggler on the line, shotting it up with your hook length. Now, I'm going to start fishing. The best way of fishing with a waggler is to actually cast the float in and feed your bait with your catapult and fish to the distance that the float will go. If you try and fish at a distance where the float isn't comfortable going, you're never ever going to be accurate. So the first step, what I'll do is I'll get it all set up how I showed you and then cast my float in. A nice comfortable cast. You don't want to be trying to cast at your very limits, and that's a nice distance. If I can feed there accurate, then that's where I'm happy to fish. So I'll just fire some maggots in, and that's gone in lovely. Real comfortable distance. So I'm ready to fish. I've chose to fish and loose feed maggots. That's going to give me the option of catching plenty of silverfish, catching F1s, everything. And now I'm going to just repeat that process. Every time I cast in, I'm going to cast to that distance, a nice comfortable cast. I'm going to loose feed my maggots over the top of the float, keeping it nice and accurate, and that's going to give you your best chance of hooking some fish on this method. What I do tend to do is when I cast in, is if you stop the float just before it hits the surface, what you'll see there, the hook bait has just gone past the float, and this decreases the chances of any tangles. If your hook bait's landing this side of your float when it all goes into the water, there's a chance that it can tangle. So just stopping the float just before it hits the surface sends the hook past the float, and there's no chance of getting any tangles. So there we go again. We've just chucked it in. I'm going to feed some maggots over the top of the float, and I'm ready to get some bites. Just had a little indication there. We've had a great start. I've caught a couple of real decent eyed, some F1s and some roach. But it really is a great method, the waggler. You're fishing at a distance just out of range of pole, and you're fishing an area of your peg that can be brilliant later on in the day when you've caught all the fish in distance of the pole. There we go. One great little tip when fishing the waggler is to cast quite regular. If you can get your hook bait falling through the water quite often, it really does increase your chances of a bite. So there you go, it's just gone past. We're going to loose feed a few more maggots again, like I did last chuck, and hopefully get some indications. The way that I set this float up with 3 number 8 down the line really does increase your chance of getting bites on the drop. Obviously with a pole rig, most of your weight of your rig is down near the hook, but with a waggler most of the weight is near the float, so you do catch a lot of fish on the drop. And there you go, that didn't take long at all. Loose fed maggots every chuck, kept it really decent and accurate area. Been nice and patient with the bites, and we've hooked another real decent fish. It really is a great method. More of a traditional method, fishing with a rod and a line, fishing just past that distance with your float, just past that distance that you can fish with a pole. I do tend to find that later on in the day this is really a method that can come into its own. Look at that, unbelievable. Massive, great big F1. We've had some big eyed, but now the F1s are starting to feed. And it frightens me just how big these fish can get in these fisheries nowadays. Look at that, massive, great big F1. It just shows you how effective this method can be. Caught some really big fish, probably bigger than the fish we've caught on the pole. But what a great method, catching some absolutely stunning fish.